Hey everyone. So I initially thought about doing a life update as some things have changed recently. But as I was thinking about it, I figured I might as well do a sort of reintroduction of myself since we've gotten some new subscribers over the past few weeks and months. And so, shout out to all the new subscribers. Thank you guys for the support. I really appreciate it. I'm still trying to figure out this YouTube business as the only feedback mechanisms I have right now are those embedded in the YouTube system. So comments, likes, and view count. And yeah, as far as trying to make comment, I'm trying to make content. I'm trying to find that optimal juxtaposition of things that I'm interested in and things that I think you guys will like. So for anyone who's continually watching the videos and you've subscribed, I appreciate the support. Let me know how I can make things better. If there's anything that you're interested in seeing, I'm totally here for it. But I feel like something that I need to do is to reintroduce myself so that way you guys have a understanding of my story, where I'm coming from, and what I'm aiming to achieve in YouTube, but also in life in general. So, my name's Solomon Thomas, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Let's see, some defining events in my life story. Well, raised by my mom and my dad up until the age of 9 when my dad ended up killing himself. And that might be, that might be a fundamental reason why I'm interested in some of the things that I'm interested in today, such as psychology and philosophy. But my mom in 2004, when that happened, was left to raise uh, myself and my older brother from then on. And was a she's still alive. She's currently a nurse practitioner, but at the time she was a nurse, working many hours per week, and so a lot of the way I was raised was through implicitly watching her, and so she never complained. She was extremely disciplined. She's Filipino. She's an immigrant, came from the Philippines, and my cousins and her siblings share this cultural attitude of just not complaining about things and being grateful and being compassionate and always caring about other people. And so while my mom, uh, she never like lectured me or told me like this is right and this is wrong explicitly. I just watched how she act, and I definitely am very grateful for her. And I see a lot of where my worldview comes from in terms of just watching how she navigated life and all the struggles that she went through. I mean, particularly that uh, event of losing someone that you thought you were going to be with for the rest of your life, even with their ups and downs. And so um, that definitely has had an important effect in terms of just molding me and who I am. But that happened around middle school. Went through middle school and high school. I'm 29 years old right now for anyone who's curious. Hopefully that adds some context. But went through high school. I could tell I was definitely like looking for a father figure or something like that. And so my mom, let me back up. In middle school, my mom put me and my brother in martial arts and taekwondo. And that was very important because I started to learn about human nature. One of the things that my martial arts instructor was keen on was just reading people, because when you're fighting, obviously, it makes sense to be able to anticipate people's movements. But well, I think I'm just realizing this now. There's not too much of a difference between reading someone's physical behaviors and then also reading their emotions and then also reading, say, their words or their thoughts. And so there's a through line that goes there. And so she was very keen on us understanding human nature to become better fighters, but I would say she maybe implicitly or explicitly wanted us to understand human nature so we can understand the entire context of emotions and thoughts and behaviors so that way we could be better people. And that was extremely useful. And from middle school into high school, stopped doing martial arts, and then I joined a JROTC program in high school, and that's where I found a retired Marine Corps gunnery sergeant that I saw as a father figure and definitely mentored me throughout those 4 years and well beyond that. And some of the things that I enjoyed about working with him was that, one, just like my martial arts instructor, he had a great implicit understanding of human nature, and he could read people well, and he understood the dynamics, especially working with high school students. He did a great job of knowing of giving those two types of love. I guess you could say that kind of love that's more like a fatherly figure, like, hey, I know you could be better if you just got out of your own way, and if you stopped messing up, then you could be so much better, and I see that potential in you. But then he also did a good job when it was warranted, to give that other type of love that was you're fine just the way you are. And I didn't learn about that conceptualization until I started listening to Jordan Peterson more recently, those two types of love. And so that was a useful framework for me to have. But he did a great job of navigating both of those, and on top of everything else that I saw from my martial arts instructor and my mother. He was disciplined, he never complained, he cared about people. And so as I was going through middle school, high school, understanding that I kind of had a gap in my life, without having a father, I was seeking out ways to fill that gap, and I was blessed enough to have encountered many people who were able to fill that gap. And so, leaving high school, I decided to go to college on a ROTC scholarship, which would eventually lead me to join the Marine Corps. While I was in college, I studied mechanical engineering, and I pledged fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And those were some of the best decisions I ever made. Again, joining the fraternity, another theme that seems to be coming out here. This is kind of like a therapy session. It's very, very interesting. It's kind of cool listening to myself try to explicate this. And although some of these things I'm sure I knew, I feel like I didn't. I feel there's something so useful about pulling out events explicitly and talking about them, and then trying to draw associations and patterns. But anyway, joined the fraternity, surrounded by great men. Part of why I joined was not necessarily because of the fraternity itself, because if you look at the principles, from all of the, I'll say specifically the black fraternities, the principles are all the same, right? Manhood, intelligence, discipline, tenacity, they're all essentially the same. But I pledged the fraternity more specifically because of the chapter, which was the part of the fraternity that was at the school. And that chapter consisted of great men. I would say the majority of them were great men, and they took me under their wing. And this is before I even joined. I just expressed my interest, and they immediately, started guiding me and giving me opportunities to show what I could do. And they spoke to me, like a real person, which was great. I guess maybe that implies that previous to that, I hadn't felt like I was spoken to as a real person. But they saw me, and they gave me an opportunity to flourish. And excuse me, after I joined the fraternity, my junior year, I would say, I was vice president, then president of that chapter, engaging in a whole bunch of community service events, social action events, learning the business of the fraternity, and learning different financial principles and what it's like to run an organization. I was also one of the leaders in the ROTC program that I was in. And then on top of that, again, I was studying, STEM major mechanical engineering. And so I felt like I was pushing myself relatively hard, and the goal was going to be to graduate and get into the Marine Corps, and that's what I ended up doing. And so in 2018, I graduated college, commissioned into the United States Marine Corps as an officer, went through basic training, the basic officer training, and became a logistics officer. I did that for about 3.5 years, did one deployment to Okinawa, Japan, non-combat deployment. And that was very exciting. It was definitely a blessing. It was difficult. There's a reason I'm not in the Marine Corps now. I got to meet many great people, and I got to interact with many diverse people, many a wide range of personalities and characteristics from all kinds of different backgrounds. And one of the things that I learned is that, and I mean, it's a cliche, you can't judge a book by its cover, but I guess to try to explicate that more, I would say that people are the same and different at the same time. It's so interesting. You can meet people from, across the world, and there are some aspects of human nature that just don't change. And then the opposite is also true. You can have many people who grew up in a similar sense, but they end up diverging into different domains in life and they have different interests, and so it's every person has an individual uniqueness that makes them special, but at the same time there's a harmony, a harmonious pattern about human nature that exists in all of them. That's what makes us humans, and so that's something that I experienced firsthand in the Marine Corps. I think I'm reminded of this quote by Carl Rogers, who's a famous psychotherapist, and the quote is something like, "That which is most personal is most general." And an example of that I found in the Marine Corps was just everyone has the capacity for great suffering. And so that's something that, while it may be idiosyncratic at the fringes as far as like the type of suffering and like the exact subjective experience of the suffering, the fact is everyone can suffer. And so at minimum, there is a way to empathize with the human being that you're interacting with across from you by the sheer fact that you know that they can experience pain and they can experience suffering. And they probably have experienced some sort of pain and suffering, and they will experience more in the future. And so, when in doubt, as things happen in the world that maybe lead to more polarization or conflict, and I'm not saying that polarization and conflict is bad. Sometimes it's necessary, but if there's ever too much conflict or polarization, I'm of the opinion that we can always fall back on at least that landscape of suffering for empathy that can unite us. So that was a rant, but went through the Marine Corps, did 4 years, was a logistics officer, so it did maintenance management, was an assistant logistics officer, just managing transportation and supply chain and things of that nature. And so that was fun. That was exciting. That was difficult. But I left primarily, I would say, because I just wanted to be closer to my family. One of my initial goals for joining the Marine Corps was that I wanted to be disciplined and I wanted to get some sort of like formal discipline to make myself better, to be able to take care of my family. And so I guess it was kind of a paradox or something that I maybe just didn't think about when I joined and I had to be far away from them. And when it comes to caring and loving my family, I am a strong believer that that is best done in person. And so if I could, I would, have a big, huge house with all of my family, my mom, my brother, his family, my fiance's family. Like we would all just live together. That'd be really cool. Or in the same neighborhood or something like that. That's just my opinion. And so when the time came for me to decide if I was going to stay in the Marine Corps or not, I made the decision to leave so that way I could be closer to my family and really live out what I believed at the time and what I still believe is my value hierarchy. And my value hierarchy in my life, the most important things to me, it's my family. Family's number one, no matter what. Family's number one. And then it's probably fitness. Then it's education. And then it might be like finances or something like that. But, family is number one. So I left the Marine Corps, came back to Atlanta in 2022, and I got a corporate job at the Home Depot. And that was great for a little over a year. I was a business analyst. And then for 9 months or so, I was a process engineer. And that was definitely a cultural change. Here I am. How old was I at the time? 26, 27 years old. I'm thinking about myself in relation to my other peers who they graduated college years back and they've been working in corporate America for years now. And some of them are managers and they're, kind of set in their career track. And here I am still trying to figure out like who I am and, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I was grateful that, I had some streams of passive, I still have some streams of passive income in terms of me getting out of the Marine Corps and getting benefits from that, as well as while I was in, I was able to use the VA loan to get some investment properties. And so, financially, I was really fine. Like I wasn't in a bind or anything, but just trying to see what would fulfill me and what I could do to just make sure that I was doing something that I thought would be meaningful. And that's an interesting topic that we could probably get into at some point. How do you find something that's meaningful, or what is meaning? And, how do you know when you're in an environment that's conducive to you having a meaningful life? But anyway, the goal getting out of the Marine Corps was just to make sure that the paychecks kept coming in. And so took this role with the Home Depot, and I learned so much. And I'm forever grateful for the people that I met, the leaders that I had, the peers and superiors that sometimes I would disagree with, but we were always able to have cordial conversations, and we were able to talk through those conflicts. And also, it was just interesting to work in such a large organization. I understand the Marine Corps is large. The DoD, the government, that's definitely a beast in its own. But I got to see a different type of complex organization, one that has a P&L and has a bottom line, and something. It was just a different structure of the way that goals were oriented at the highest level of the entire business, all the way down to a small team of 7, and like how do they fit into that larger hierarchy. And I also feel like I got to tap back into reality, so to speak, as most there's definitely more people working in a corporate job in America than there are in the military. And so as I'm engaging with people in the military, I understand that that's a select few type of person. Like there's a select few people in the Marine Corps, there's a select few people in the military, and it's a special kind of person that wants to join the military. Whereas just because there's more people working in corporate America, you're to the degree that you're in one corporate company, you can generalize to corporate culture, which is closer to American culture. And so I got to just see what normal life was like and what normal people did, and it was great. It was great. And at the same time, I found myself, it was a very real, emotional headspace for me, where I would do my work at the Home Depot, and that was definitely very interesting. At the same time, I would find myself constantly reading books about psychology. I found Jordan Peterson in, I don't know, 2019 to 2020. And ever since then, I've just kind of been on that path of trying to read and write and be better intellectually. And he has a reading list of 100 books that I've been trying to go through. And that's just been, it's been such a, it's been very exciting to try to figure out who I am intellectually. And it's more than just intellectually, trying to figure out what is the proper pattern of perceptions and behaviors that I need to embody if I'm trying to really do the most good that I can in this world. And so I constantly found myself trying to go back where I started, I guess, as well. As I mentioned, in middle school, I was in martial arts and I was learning about human nature. And then when I was in Home Depot, I just kept reading about human nature, essentially from a psychological and philosophical standpoint. And I loved it. And I realized that, I did my best to spend 30 minutes a day writing and spend 90 minutes a day reading. And I knew that there was more I could do if I changed my environment. That's not to say that I didn't have anything to do with it. I know that I could always, there's always, that's one thing you guys can know about me. Like, I'm watching how my mom operated, watching how my martial arts instructor operated, and then same thing with that gunnery sergeant in high school who essentially helped raise me. The default mode for me is not to make an excuse, right? It's always my fault. Like, it's always something that I could do. If I didn't do everything that I could to maximize my desired outcome, then I can't say that an external cause was what prevented me from achieving my goal. So just want to say that out there out front. At the same time, it's interesting to think about, well, what if I changed my environment? If I had the opportunity to go back to school or, do something else that would be more aligned with my interests, how much more productive could I be if I get my motivational systems aligned with what I'm actually doing every single day? And how can I create a feedback loop of just, well, I know I'm interested in this. Okay, I'm also getting hands-on experience in my job that I'm getting paid to do. And as I'm learning, I'm increasing my motivation to continue on this path because as I'm learning, I'm getting better. And that witnessing yourself continuing to make progress and achieve your goals is in itself motivating more. And so you can just create this cycle where you can keep bossing up essentially. And so I was having these thoughts in 2022, so 2 years into being with Home Depot, and it just so happened that my fiance Kenya, she is a general surgery resident. She got matched into a school in New York City, and so I left the Marine Corps in 2022 to be closer to my family. Moved back to Atlanta, spent 2 years in Atlanta, and then my fiance and I got the news that she was matched into her residency program, her general surgery residency program in New York. And so we made the decision to move to New York. And so that's where I'm at now. So what am I doing now? Well, continuing to try to improve myself and be better for my fiance, be better for our future kids, my nephews, my mother, my brother, just trying to be a good example for anyone who might need a good example like I did after my dad died. And so doing a few things currently in marathon prep. Been running for a few years now. I've been doing marathons seriously, I guess, for the past 2 or 3 years. And I love running for many reasons. I love marathon training. I would say primarily just because it's difficult. And I've made a few friends along the way. And it's been a great aspect of my life that has benefits that increase exponentially and bleed into other domains of my life. Like I feel like as I become a better runner, I become a better thinker. As I become a better thinker, I become a better soon to be husband and all of that stuff. The main that's one reason. Another reason that's definitely primary is that I just want to be healthy. Honestly, I want to be mentally and physically healthy, and I don't want to be 80 or 90 years old and just not able to live life. And so my notion, and I've gotten this from Peter Attia and other podcasters, Dr. Andrew Huberman, Tim Ferriss, like as I think decades down the line and I try to envision what I want my life to be like, I understand that I have to take precautions and build habits now because it's just, barring some technological revolution, once you get to a certain age, it gets harder and harder to try to maintain various levels of physical and mental health and fitness. And so I love marathon training because it's a fun sport and it's, I don't know, I'm kind of good at it. A year or so ago now, yeah, about a year ago, I ran my first sub 3 hour marathon. It was like 30 seconds under 3 hours, but I got it, and that was very exciting. And so right now I'm in week 9 of a 12-week marathon prep. Okay, so why am I doing that? I'm not running a race at the end of this 12-week prep. What I'm doing is a 22-mile workout that simulates a marathon, and I got this from watching Nick Bare doing some of his marathon preps with his coach Jeff Cunningham. And so this marathon prep is a way for me to practice a 12-week build for when I do decide to put a race on the calendar and then back plan 12 weeks back. I'll know what to do. Let's see, what else am I doing? So I just started grad school, just had my first week this past week, and things went well. The goal is to graduate in a year and a half. The way the school works, their program has graduations in August of every year. And so currently in fall semester, and then after spring and going into summer, the goal is to graduate and then apply for a PhD program and to become a clinical psychologist. What I want to do is I want to teach, I want to do research, and I want to help people. I would love to have a private practice. I would love to just. One of my favorite psychologists that I mentioned earlier is Carl Rogers, and I love his approach. And I could definitely something about what he has been doing, from speaking to individual people to going to speaking to it's whole societies and countries. I think he did like a whole conference in Brazil where people just came to listen to him speak, and that impacted, if I remember correctly, I might be making this up, but that impacted, that definitely had political impacts that rippled throughout the society. And so to be able to convey deep truths and principles that have been gathered from decades of watching people and reading and thinking, and trying to really listen to and understand people. And if you can do all of that in a manner to where it's helpful, I just see that as a great goal. I love what Jordan Peterson is currently doing, and that reminds me of what I read about Carl Rogers, and so that's kind of my aim in that domain. And so I think that's about it for the life update. Kenny and I plan to get married next year, so we're gonna get into wedding planning at some point. Um, Kind of looking forward to the planning. Not really looking forward to the planning. I hear it's gonna be complex, but I think we'll be able to figure it out. But excited for that, and then excited to hopefully a year after that start trying to have a kid, and you know see where that goes. Neither of us are getting any younger, and so we both want a child, but we also understand that we are both relatively pretty traditional, and so we want to do things a certain way. Um, and we're also continuing to work on ourselves and our relationship because we want to have a household that's a good foundational structure for our children. Camera died again. I hope you guys get the picture. I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. My goal with this YouTube channel is just to try to be an example for anyone out there who needs an example. And if the content helps you, that's really all I'm trying to do here, just by showing some of the things that I'm doing. And so I'm hoping to share some of the mistakes. So hopefully that can allow you to not make those same mistakes. And then if I come across some principles or some experiences that I think might be helpful, I'll share those as well. So I think that's it. Yeah, gonna end it there. Thank you guys for tuning in.